Hi, I'm Stephanie. I'm in my pajamas. Wow, yeah, welcome or welcome back, whichever. Today's video is unplanned, unscripted, and as you can tell by the pajamas, unshowered. Why? Well, let me explain. So, I arrived back in the UK yesterday, having moved back here from Spain. And yeah, I got back to Blighty, but guess what? This is not my house. No. I've had an unfortunate thing happen. Yeah, I know, for anyone who's followed me so far, another one. My tenants have made me homeless. Yeah, temporarily, I hope. My videos, even the ones that are about a serious subject, tend to be quite like light-hearted, and I apologise sincerely if this one is not particularly light-hearted, but I'm very stressed right now. And yeah, this is not quite what I thought my first video would be, but hey, here we are. Okay, let me explain. And first and foremost, I just want to say that I try to stay away from like political stuff because I just think, I prefer like bringing light-hearted things to the world, but this one might sound a little bit political, but to be quite honest, it's not. It's a personal experience that obviously has to touch on a political subject, and it also probably will not apply to you if you do not live in the UK. But these are certain like laws and things that are in place regarding landlords and tenants that I think people should know, and I think that landlords should be aware of, which I was not anticipating. So, okay, sorry if that was all a bit of a boring backstory. Let me actually get to the actual story. Right, okay. How have my tenants made me homeless? Well, let's let's go back in time a little bit. I moved to Spain. Well, no, let's go back even further because to make this all make sense. Let's go back even further. I bought my home in the UK with the plan to live in it long term. My plan was to live in it forever, essentially. It's the type of place that's got like growing room. It was meant as my home. It wasn't something that I bought as a buy to let or anything. However, life changes, and I ended up deciding to move to Spain, but I didn't want to sell it because I, well, I mean, I'd never lived in Spain before, so I wanted to see how life in Spain went before selling up or anything like that. So I decided to rent it out. Now, I'm sure lots of people are renting places out in that type of circumstance, not necessarily moving to Spain circumstances, but for example, if two people own properties and then they get together as a couple and they decided to live in one property and rent out the other property. Okay, so first thing I want to point out is not all landlords are, sorry to go off on a bit of a tangent, but I do find that in the press and everything, landlords are kind of vilified. They're kind of looked upon as if they are these really, really rich people who live in a big house and drive a really expensive car and they own lots of properties and they're like really horrible to their tenants. But that's not actually what all landlords are. And I mean, I don't know the percentages at all, but for the people that I know personally, I think maybe I've even come across one person in my entire life who is a like that type of landlord, who being a landlord is their job. For most people, it is a case of they got together with someone who already owned a property, and so one of them decided to move in with the other one and rent their property out, or they had to move to a different place for work, and for whatever circumstances, they weren't prepared to let out their original home, and that's me. So that's the reason behind renting my property out. In the time that it's been rented out, it has not made me any money. Let's just put that out there straight away. It has lost me money, most definitely. It has not made me money, because that's another landlord myth that I can bust right now, is that for any money you make, obviously there's taxes to be paid. Then on top of that, you've got the expense of, certainly in my case, the expense of the fact that being out of the country, I've had to make sure that it was run by a managing agent, and they obviously take their cut as well. Then the fact that I've been a landlord living abroad, there's an extra tax you have to pay if you're a landlord abroad. Take that into consideration if you're going to consider doing it and you move abroad. And so there's a lot of stuff you have to pay out for, and that's not even, oh, and then obviously there's the insurances and stuff like that as well. And that's not even taking into consideration the fact that things go wrong. Things break and you have to pay out for it. And like, for example, I don't know, let's say something goes wrong in the property you live in, you can take your sweet time. If you don't have the money to fix it, you can take your time about doing it. When you have tenants, it's not like that, because if you're a good landlord, which I would think I was, or am, unfortunately, then, you know, you get those things fixed as soon as you know that they're broken. So that is essentially why I feel that I've not made any money. In fact, I probably lost money, because there's been more things that seem to have gone wrong, unluckily, than have gone right. However, going back to approximately a year ago, my tenants noticed that there was some damp coming through in the bathroom. Now, the bathroom was completely redone before they moved in, but there was some damp starting to show in the bathroom. So got someone to sort of, you know, check the tiles, and they sort of resealed the tiles and things, thinking maybe it was just sort of like, you know, water had leaked through the grouting. Maybe the grouting wasn't that good, or something. And so it was dealt with that way. But a few months later, the problem came back and got worse. So I had to organise somebody to basically go and do a proper damp survey. Now, it took a little while trying to get things organised, in terms of trying to get someone and get them access, but especially not living in the country, get them access around the tenant schedule and everything, and get them to sort of check it out and everything. That took a little while, but I mean, not my fault. You know, it's just, unfortunately, it's just one of those things, trying to get them booked in and arrange it around the tenants and everything. It took a little while, obviously going back and forth with management agents as well, because, well, I don't know anyone who's ever dealt with agents, but yeah, things can be a little bit slow. They discovered that there was a problem within the walls that would have to be rectified, but the only way to rectify it would be to pull out the entire bathroom and take it right back to the walls to fix the problem. But in my flat, there's only one bathroom, which of course would mean that the tenants would not have a bathroom during the time of doing the building work. Now, I do have landlord insurance, and so there was a possibility of having them move into accommodation just while the building work was being done. However, my tenants had 3 cats, and so it would be very difficult for them to, like, you know, go and stay in a hotel or something during that time, or an Airbnb or something. So because of my situation, because of that situation, essentially we looked into it and said, look, when you come to the point of moving out, it'd be easier for them to move out and me to deal with it when they are no longer my tenants. Now, this all was discussed a few months ago, and at that point I'd said to them, if they want to break contract and go early because they don't want to live in the circumstance of the bathroom being damp now, then I would hold no penalty whatsoever with them breaking contract early and having them leave early. They decided that they didn't want to. I made it very clear that if they don't, then they have to accept that they'll be living in that condition until said time as they do move out. But they chose to stay until the end of their contract period, and that was yesterday. So I listened to what they wanted, and I organised for builders to go in afterwards, and I organised my entire life around them leaving on the date that they had chosen to leave. And that meant that I left my job, and I planned things, and a friend of mine, darling Shazanix, organised to come to Spain to help me pack up everything there and move back. And I drove my car through France to the UK and it was packed up with all my worldly belongings, and it was all organised and it was all on schedule, and they were due to move out the day I arrived back in the UK, which was yesterday, and so I was due to move back in today. However, as we were on the ferry coming up to the White Cliffs of Dover, I got a phone call to say that the tenants had decided that they are not leaving. Yeah. My first reaction was like, well, why are they not leaving? Because obviously, to me that made no sense whatsoever, because they wanted to, and they had months to know, because apparently what had happened is that they had struggled to find a place to go to, because they have cats. Not many landlords allow pets, and so they were struggling to find a place to move to. But we are talking about 4 months notice. We're not talking about me chucking them out on the streets. We're not talking about me saying, hey guys, you've got to get out in 2 weeks, or even 1 month. They had 4 months to find somewhere. 4 months to find somewhere. Okay, I want to drum that in. Okay, I'm not commenting on the situation where sometimes you have a landlord who just wants to up the rent, and because there's a rental cap, they can't, and so they give notice for no reason. I'm talking about the fact that there was building work that needs to be done, and they had 4 months notice to find a place. They've asked for an extension, and I obviously said, last week they'd asked if there was a possibility of an extension, and I said no, there is no possibility of an extension, because I've booked everything. I have booked everything. Everything's packed up, and so I am. I was in France at the time they asked for the extension. I said I'm literally on my way back now. I cannot give an extension, because I'll have nowhere to live if there's an extension given. And they were very aware of the fact that I would get to the UK and have nowhere to live. They knew that. They still didn't organise anywhere to go. At that point, they could have thought, you know what, it's our own fault that we haven't found anywhere yet, because we didn't get ourselves organised quickly enough. We'll go and stay in Airbnb. The cats can stay with family, or potentially a cattery or something like that. But we'll make our plans and that, just while we're waiting on finding the right place for us. They could have done that. That's what I would have done. But that's not what they chose to do. They decided that they're going to stay there. The last of their rent has already been paid, so at this point of recording, they are now, well, technically they're in rental arrears. Now, this is where it gets even more frustrating, okay, because what the tenants have chosen to do is one thing, okay, that is what it is. That's what they've decided to do, and, okay, whatever. But the thing that's really upset me and got to me at this point right now, and the thing that's really, really upsetting me and is making me do that frustration cry, I'm sure some people know what I'm talking about when you're really frustrated and it just makes you cry, is the fact that I have landlord insurance, and I am covered legally for full legal expenses. And so I called them and said, what can I do about this? And I was told that while they are living there legally, I can't go there, because I would be trespassing. I can't. There's nothing I can do about it. They're allowed to continue living there because it's their home. I did point out that they are not paying rent now. It is not their home. They're out of contract. They have been served notice, official notice. I think it's called Section 20 or Section 20. I can't remember. Anyway, they've been served official notice to leave. They've been given months of notice to leave. They had agreed to leave. They paid up until the date that they were leaving, and that it's not their home, it's my home, and that it means that I now don't have a home to go to. And I'm here with all my stuff in my car, including my microphone stand. My wrist is hurting. Yeah, so they're aware. They're aware of all the legal stuff around it, and I'm still told that no, it's not my home. I'm not allowed to go into it. I'm not allowed to go back there. They're not paying the mortgage, I am. It's not their home, it's my home. I don't know how long they're going to be staying there for either, so I don't even know how to go about finding alternative accommodation, because could it be like a few nights? Could it be a few months? I don't know, so I don't know what to do about alternative accommodation. thankfully, I'm lucky. I'm very, very lucky for the fact that I've, you know, I've got somebody locally who's let me crash at their house. I'm very lucky. What if I didn't? What if I had kids? You know what? I've still got to pay the mortgage. I can't really afford to pay the mortgage when they're not paying me and then also pay for separate accommodation too. I was okay paying for separate accommodation when I was getting the rental income from this one to cover the mortgage for this one. I don't have the money that it would take to do both, to pay out for the mortgage of this one and on top of that pay for rental accommodation. And I've spoken to people as well about, is there any way that I could get accommodation, like, like in I don't know, say like a council, a short-term council, something, room, anything. And I was told that I can't because I financially, on paper, I have money, because I have property. Guess what? Yeah, I've got property, but I'm not allowed to go and live in it. So I don't have property. How can you tell me that I'm not allowed to get any sort of help housing wise because I've got a property when I'm telling you that the reason I'm asking for help is because I can't live in the property? Also, I have a small amount of savings, but the savings are because I saved up to pay for the building work. So yeah, I've got a little bit of savings, but that's because I saved up to pay for the builders that are going in on Monday. So if I then spend that on accommodation, and I won't be able to pay the builders, and I need to pay the builders. So anyway, I don't know how to fix this because legally speaking, they're saying that it's their home, not my home. Like, this isn't what the tenants are saying, this is what the law is saying. The law is saying that I cannot be helped because I own property, even though I'm not allowed to live in that property. I can't go back to my own home, even though I'm paying for it. But obviously, if I stop paying for it, well, you know what happens there. And so I now don't know what's going on. I don't know what's happening. I just know that for now I'm going to be keeping at someone else's house. I do know that I am really lucky that I have that opportunity, because I know that, it could be worse. I could have no one's house that I could stay at. But then it's also got a knock-on effect of other things, like because all my stuff is in my car, and my car, like, my stuff doesn't fit, like the house is piled high with my stuff already, so I've had to leave like a lot of my stuff in the car, and I can't. And I feel worried, I feel worried that my stuff's in the car, because what if the car gets broken into? I've made sure that there's only stuff in the boot, so it's not like obvious, but still it's a worry. Anyway, I've waffled on for long enough, but I just wanted to say this because I wanted to explain the fact that not all landlords are rich, not all landlords are fat cats with big houses and expensive cars and are kicking tenants out left, right and centre. And I think that there should be some form of law in place that covers the landlords who only have tenants for a circumstance like this, and that it should be that if you, as a landlord, have done all the things you're supposed to do, you've given notice, and they're now out of contract and they're no longer paying you, and that's an accommodation that you're supposed to be moving into as opposed to just some random accommodation, I think there should be a clause. I do fully agree that tenants should be protected against being chucked out for like random reasons or short-term notice periods, or they should, like, tenants should definitely be supported for most of those things. But when it means that you've got a landlord who is more officially declared homeless, because you don't have a home to go to because the tenants are refusing to leave, and there's no, like, who knows what's going to happen, that shouldn't be allowed. I cannot comprehend how that's allowed. But anyway, yeah, sorry for the rant and the waffle. And I'm really hoping that by the time this is actually goes live, that the whole thing will be resolved and I will be able to give you an update and say, here I am in my home. Yeah, how lovely. It's all fixed and resolved. But I'm also aware that even if my situation gets resolved quickly, well, I'm sure I'm not the only person in this circumstance. I'm sure there's other people in this circumstance. And I'm sure there's other people in this circumstance who don't have somebody locally that they can go and stay with. Anyway, crikey, I swore when I restarted this channel that, that there would be no more tears. Oh, anyway, thanks ever so much for watching. If you're someone who regularly watches my channel, then apologies for the not quite so light-hearted waffle that I usually give you. If you're someone who doesn't regularly watch my channel, then why are you watching this? Oh, probably because you googled something to do with like landlords and tenant stuff, in which case you're probably in a similar circumstance, and I'm sorry and I feel for you, and let me know where I sign or whatever petition. Let me know your story in the comments or whatever, and I just... Anyway, I apologise. I'm going to go. Okay, there's going to be no funny story at the end of this video. I like to put like a light-hearted, funny, jokey story at the end of my videos, but there's not going to be one for this one, I'm afraid. So yeah, sorry. Okay, anyway, yeah. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.